Honorable President Grimson, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I will try to bring some perspectives to this great audience from the point of view of reindeer herders. Reindeer herding is a circumpolar phenomenon. It is practiced today in Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, Mongolia, China, Alaska, Canada, Greenland, and also in Scotland. In fact, since we have the Honorable President with us, I would like to reiterate our offer to turn Iceland into a reindeer herding nation anytime soon, as you are the only Arctic nation that doesn't have herding. Be that as it may, there is a diversity of indigenous peoples and indigenous cultures built on reindeer herding. 24 different indigenous groups base their lives on herding reindeer. And it is, at this conference, we've heard a lot about the new opportunities in the Arctic. Reindeer herding is one of the existing economic sectors, industries, if you will, and it is the basis upon which our cultures are formed. And it is a typical indigenous livelihood, way of life. We could also see it representing a human-coupled ecosystem where people and nature and animals are very strongly tied together. It can also be seen as a model of management of the barren Arctic land areas, a model which has been developed and transferred over many, many generations, centuries, millennia. And today, as we've heard, indeed, these days, global change is real in the Arctic. It is creating a complex picture of changing factors, and climate change is the most severe long-term driver, but there are also other types of change. And indeed, the combination of these different types of change is what gives us a legitimate concern for the sustainability, future sustainability of some of these groups. I would like to say that today we see an explosion of research, development, and policy interests in the Arctic, which we also see as our homelands. And I would like to show you this quote by the Arctic parliamentarians. It's soon 10 years ago when they said that we need to find ways to stay ahead of this development. Perhaps now is the time to look back at these 8 years and assess how well we have done. So the big question facing reindeer herding communities is, how do we build our societies strong for the future? Resilient, robust societies. And I will try to elaborate on a few ways in which I think we could address this important topic. First of all, what we are worrying about is passive local communities in face of this profound and historical change. Therefore, I think it is very needed to have also long-term responses to our challenges, so to work with youth is very important. We are currently about to finalize an Arctic Council project called Erlin, Reindeer Herding Youth, hosted by the Russian Federation and Norway. I would especially like to commemorate the strong support from the Sakha Republic in this regard. This project seeks to build the competence, the knowledge and understanding of young reindeer herders, to train them to become the geopolitical leaders of the future, to build their competence, but not least their confidence. Leadership is key. Another issue close to our heart is that of traditional knowledge. And this is the knowledge upon which our communities have been founded, our cultures are built. And I would just like to remind the audience that the 5th report of IPCC, the Polar Regions chapter, to which I was a co-author, have identified 3 main risks for the polar regions. But what I'd like to state is that as a response to these key risks, IPCC have concluded that there is a need to focus, to make use of also indigenous or traditional knowledge. We need to use the best available knowledge to find the answers for our common future. If we look at what is happening in practice, though, the picture is somewhat different, because there are barriers for including traditional knowledge in the management of the Arctic. I think everyone agrees that traditional knowledge would be important from a cultural point of view, but our point is that it is real knowledge, it is tested knowledge, knowledge that should be applied and put to use to manage our homelands in the future. Another issue is that, well, we know the Arctic is changing, but change means both challenges as well as opportunities. A paradox is that our nomadic, fragmented communities are often finding themselves in a situation where they are not able to get into position to exploit the opportunities that arise from Arctic change. And so this is an issue that we also need to have a focus on. On the other hand, the traditional knowledge of Arctic indigenous peoples are strong, and there is a diversity of traditional food cultures that are very rich and that has not been used properly, in my opinion, to develop societies, develop local economies, and sustainable futures. So to utilize the knowledge of the people to maintain and develop their own societies and well-being is key. And I would just like to show you something. This is a very special, very good soup, reindeer soup, made by Reindeer Herding. I'm mentioning this because yesterday at the Northern Forum reception hosted by President Borisov of Sakha Republic, we were able to get a taste of these food delicacies. So our idea is that by using our own knowledge, in this case on food culture, we would be bringing a new approach to address Arctic change. And this is why we have formed what we call the Arctic Indigenous Peoples Culinary Institute, to address this by use of documentation, research, and education, to make also a foundation, better foundation for local business development in Arctic indigenous societies. And we think it's very timely because climate change is also about what we are going to eat in the future. If you will, please imagine that you are part of this nomadic family living in the most extreme areas in the Russian high north. Is it the sugar industry and the food industry solutions that will secure these people? Food safety, food security is also an important issue in the Arctic Council. So to wrap up, the Arctic is changing, we know that. How to handle it. We need active local societies. We need to build local capacity and leadership, youth. We need to use the best available knowledge, science and traditional knowledge to cope. And we need to get our communities into position to also exploit the opportunities at hand. And in this way, we strongly believe that it's important that an opportunity should be an opportunity for all. Thank you.